Hi guys, my name is Blake. Welcome to my channel. Today I am bringing you my favorite adult fantasy reads of 2021. I'll be having the 4.5 star reads first and then the 5 stars later on, and I will have timestamps for everything down below in case you're just interested in hearing about certain ones. The first 4.5 star read I had was For the Killing of Kings by Howard Andrew Jones. In this book we are following the Altanari. They are a group of knights and magicians that defend this kingdom. They are known for being very morally just, and they take vows to uphold the law no matter what. And at the beginning of this book, one of the mentors of the Altanari discovers corruption amongst the ranks of the Altanari knights. So he tells two of his most trustworthy pupils about this corruption, and these two characters are who we're following throughout the story as the Altanaries frame them and they have to kind of go on the run. I think that this is a really great introduction to this world. I think it has a lot of traditional fantasy elements. It does have that sword and sorcery feeling. We are going on a quest. We have animal companions, great fight scenes, character betrayals. I really like the characters as well. Elena is one of the characters that we follow, and she is a squire, but she desperately wants to be an Altanari. She believes in this cause so much. And we have Kirkconnell, and he is, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, he is a very cocky and arrogant archer, but he is very, very good at what he does. And he and Elena kind of have to team up to uncover the truth. And along the way, we see this really interesting world and this interesting magic system. In fact, I really liked both, but they are incredibly light. So if you are new to fantasy or are transitioning from YA to adult, I think this would be a good pick. Because in this world, the magicians have these gemstones, and through these gemstones, it kind of guides their power and it helps them direct their magic. And the world is really interesting. We don't get a ton of it in this first book, but I'm hoping that in later books it will show up more. But we are traveling through the Borderlands, which is like this very dangerous area, and the dimensions can alter within the Borderlands. So some areas are safer because they exist within our reality. But then other areas are more dangerous because they are dimension over top of dimension. And we are following these very morally just characters. And this book feels very lighthearted and hopeful. So if you aren't into reading some of the darker fantasy and you want something that's light and quick, I think that this would be perfect for that because it's about 300 pages. I read it in one sitting. And it was just incredibly entertaining. It does have that swashbuckling fantasy feel to it. The only reason why I gave this one 4.5 stars is because the magic system and the world building really aren't explored as much as I would like. The next book I have on this list is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. I was completely mind blown that I loved this book as much as I did. Alan from the Library of Alexandria loved this book. He talked about it a lot. And I thought that there was no way that I would like it. And I thought that sounded incredibly boring. I would never like it. But the more Alan talked about it, the more interested I became. And I ended up loving it. It ended up being here on this list. This is one of the most unique books that I have ever read. There is nothing I can compare it to compel you to read it. The writing style is beautiful. It feels very poetic almost. And we are in this tower with Senlin, who is one of the most interesting characters I have ever read about. I absolutely love his character, even though he is nothing like anything that I thought I would like. He is not your typical main character. He is very arrogant, and he's not very friendly or very likable. He's not heroic or very brave. He's very relatable, I think. He is very introverted, very bookish, and he doesn't always make good decisions. And that was one of the frustrations I had with him. but he was still very interesting to read about. The tower itself is also very interesting. I feel like that is the main antagonist of the book. It almost feels like a character in and of itself. The tower is very corrupt, and so do the people that live there. And while in this first book we really don't know very much about the tower, I am looking forward to learning about the tower in future books. I think that's the aspect that I am most excited about to read in the future. And man, this book, the author really makes you feel Senlin's hopelessness. You really feel the alarm he has at having lost his wife, and then throughout the book it becomes even more depressing. Just as Senlin has almost given up hope, and I think that the author really conveys that really well. The only reason why I gave this one 4.5 stars is because it took me a bit to get into it in the beginning, and I do feel like there is a part in the middle where it is a bit slower. I have so many questions. I finished it months and months ago, but I still think about this book. Getting into my 5-star reads, the first one I have here is Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. This is a novel about this retired group of mercenary / monster hunters, and they have retired and they have all gotten old and gone their separate ways. And one of them brings the band back together one last time to save his daughter. I think that this was inspired by the author's D&D group, and it definitely feels that way. This story feels very personal. It feels very lighthearted, very fun, and this was exactly what I was wanting at the time that I picked it up. I needed a little pick-me-up, and this book was exactly that. It's incredibly fun and quick. I read it in one sitting. It's action-packed. There are great fight scenes. I loved the characters. I loved their interactions with each other. And I did laugh out loud a couple of times while I was reading it. This book does have some reference to 80s rock music, which is what I listened to with my mom growing up. And I did get some references, but I'm sure I missed some. But even if you don't listen to 80s rock music, I think that you could still really enjoy this. This book has a lot of tropes and elements that I really enjoy. It is a quest fantasy. We are getting the band back together. We do have these reluctant heroes and kind of these has-beens that are up against an impossible task. And also we have that found family trope, which I really enjoy. This book doesn't take itself too seriously, and I think that's really where it shines. And I am really looking forward to reading the sequel. Up next, I have The Queen of Blood by Beth Durst. In this world, these people live a very nature-based lifestyle, and in this world there are elemental spirits that they are kind of forced to live beside. But these elemental spirits are incredibly vengeful, and they will attack people at any given time. And in this realm, there is a queen who is supposed to keep order between these elemental spirits and the people. Yet the queen keeps slipping, and the elemental spirits keep attacking, and no one knows why. And the main character that we're following in this book is actually a girl whose entire village was slain by these elemental spirits, and she wants to go to this magic school so that she can one day be queen to protect the people of this realm from these elemental spirits. And that is kind of how this story starts off. The story takes place over many, many years, and we are following a character who is not good at controlling the elemental spirits. She is probably one of the worst in her class. I had a lot of expectations while I was reading this book. I thought that a lot of things would happen. They didn't end up going the way that I was expecting. I like that she made the main character struggle. Nothing came easily to her. And in this world, it is a very, very dark and brutal place, and I personally really enjoyed that. The spirits are evil, and they are also incredibly intelligent, and we learn more about them as the story progresses. This book is very dark and brutal, and I think that it really takes a lot of punches at the characters. The consequences in this world are very real. I was not expecting the story to go where it did. And I also really love the author's writing style. It was very dark, very atmospheric, very beautifully written. It was almost like a dark fairy tale, and that is something that I will always love and support. The next book I have is Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. In this book, we are following Valen Alsorna, and he is telling us the story of his life, starting from the moment his father abandons him to the Sixth Order, which is a religious order that trains young boys to be killers. The first half of this book, we are following Valen as a young man, kind of growing up in the Sixth Order, learning how to fight. I loved that school setting, and I loved his interaction with the other boys and the challenges he had to go through. But then in the second half of the book, he is older and it becomes more politically heavy. I really do feel like this book ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's a coming-of-age story. There are fight scenes, there are training sequences, there's a school setting, there are great friendships, betrayals, animal companions, and there's also a lot of moral struggle within our character. I really like Valen as a character. As a young man, he believes in his faith wholeheartedly, and he never questions what he is told by the Order. But then as an older man, we see him kind of starting to question if what he knows is true. And he is just a morally just character. He really questions whether he's doing the right thing or not. This book can be read as a standalone. I have heard that the last two books in the trilogy are not that good, and there is also a spin-off duology. And I think that each book follows different characters. I'm not sure about that though. I did hear some very negative things, and I originally wasn't sure that I wanted to continue on. But I think I loved this book enough that I'm willing to give it a try. I've also heard people say that this book could have used better editing. The author really doesn't use the correct punctuation or use commas very often. I don't know about that. I listened to the audiobook, and that is how I consumed it, and I think that the audiobook was wonderful. So if that would bother you, the lack of punctuation or editing, I would highly recommend the audiobook. Up next, I have For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten. This book is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. In this kingdom, there are always twins born. The first child is for the throne, and the second child is for the wolf. And we are following Red, who is the second child. And on her 21st birthday, she has to go into this enchanted wood and be sacrificed to the wolf. Except when she gets there, she discovers that the wolf is not what she expected, and things are not what she was told. This book is straight up a Beauty and the Beast retelling. There isn't a whole lot that is different from the original story. We have an enchanted castle, an enchanted forest, enchanted people that work in the castle. There is a magic mirror, a curse. So it's all very similar. It's not too incredibly different. But I was totally okay with that. I love Beauty and the Beast. It's my favorite fairy tale. I liked the familiarity of this story. I also liked our main character, Red. She is very opinionated, very strong-willed. I loved the relationship that she had with her twin. And I also liked the romance in this book as well. It is pretty romance heavy. And the last 5-star read on this list is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I know that she is not loved by everyone, but that's okay. I have no shame. I don't think anyone needs me to tell them what this book is about. It is a continuation of the ACOTAR trilogy. In this book, we are following Nesta. I was really hesitant when this book was first announced because I thought Nesta was an unlikable character. Like, I liked reading about her, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to read an entire book about her, if that makes sense. I really liked that she was a mean hag in the first trilogy, and I was worried that the author would try to make her a really likable and loving character when she is clearly not. But that didn't happen in this. She is still a hag in this book, but I do think that I understand her character better. And she does get a bit of a redemption arc. But again, she is still herself, and that is what I wanted her to be. This book doesn't have much of a plot. It's very romance heavy. It is a bit smutty, which is not normally my wheelhouse, but Sarah J. Maas books just work for me. I will always love them. I love the characters that she creates. And even though I don't love the way that Sarah writes sometimes, I think that she reuses characters and she tends to repeat things a lot, and I feel like things are typically pretty recycled. I do feel like this is her best writing thus far. I think that her mental health writing was at its best because in every series she does, she has a main character that struggles with some type of mental health problem. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think that Sarah writes mental health so well in these books, or at least with what I have experienced in my life and what I have seen people experience. I got this book. I stayed up all night until 4 a.m. reading this book. I couldn't put it down. I read this 800-page chunker in one sitting. I skipped dinner. I didn't go pee. Like, I was so obsessed with this when I read it. I think it's I think it's my favorite Sarah J. Maas book to date. These are my favorite adult fantasy reads of 2021. Let me know if you have read any of these, what you thought about them, if any of these made it on your list. I would love to know what your favorite reads of 2021 were. Just let me know all of the bookish things in the comments, and I will see you again with another video soon. Thank you so much for watching.